All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to talk about some year-end human resources checklist items that you want to make sure to look at. We do recommend that we do this on an annual basis. You know, it's quarter 4 already. I cannot believe it. We're just a couple of days away from November. So there are some things that we want to make sure that you look at within your organizations as you prepare to move into the new year. And while the year end, may be less demanding for some employers, who spend time celebrating at office parties and, vacation time and potluck and Friendsgivings and all of that, it is a busy time for human resources typically. Year end is typically done, ensuring that all the administrative details are taken care of in the organization, that we have a seamless transition into the new year. And this content will actually be featured in an upcoming ebook in your library. Don't forget, as a part of the Complete Manager Makeover membership, all of the ebooks that we have on our shop are either complimentary or discounted for you. So just log into your website portal and take a look at all of the different content that we have available for you at any phase of the employee life cycle, and this will be one of them in some coming weeks. So definitely keep that in mind. So let's jump right in. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you're reviewing and updating your company policies. Throughout the year, not only federal law changes, but your state laws can change and your local laws as well. As we just saw in September, the Florida minimum wage was increased to $10 an hour. And that is part of a plan to get it up to 15 over several years. But do keep in mind, no employee in your organization should be paid less than $10 minimum wage unless you're taking a tip credit, unless that employee is in a tipped position. But that could be a whole nother webinar or a whole nother content. Policies, really guide your employee behavior. They demonstrates the company compliance with major employment laws. And it's important that if there's something that's outdated, that it no longer reflect the company practices, because it really can cause more harm than good. I know many of you in the community, and some of you who may be outside of the community, if you're interested in taking that employee handbook and getting that updated, HBL Resources, the parent company to the Complete Manager Makeover, does offer a small business handbook. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity, and you can find that in our shop as well. Now, with the new year approaching, again, many federal and state laws have changed. So now's the perfect time to review those company policies and update them accordingly. Again, I've got to always point you to the resources and benefits of your membership. As part of your membership, you have access to the HR 360 portal. That provides you additional information and insight for your specific state. We've got a couple of clients and members in New York, Virginia, right here in Florida. So go ahead into your HR 360 portal and access the various information that you have at your disposal to see what's changed. If you are getting our newsletter, then we are also ensuring that you are staying up to date on all of the federal and sometimes state law changes. So we really do address, from a newsletter perspective, the federal guidelines, because we've got so many in our community throughout the United States. So definitely make sure that you're reading those different newsletters that go out. We do have one that'll be out tomorrow as well. So definitely check those, because that's how we'll advise you if a handbook update needs to happen, if employment laws have changed, if certain tweaks should be made to your employee application, such as we did when we began, this journey with removing the social security number from our application, because it's really not necessary at that point. So those are the kinds of things that we ensure you know about. So be intentional about reading the content that we're putting out, because that's the best way to be in the know. And then, of course, that HR 360 portal will help guide you. And if you have if you have a business in another state, maybe you have one in Florida, New York, and California. That portal gives you access to all states in the United States. Now, keep in mind that when you have changes in your handbook and you're not maybe ready to update the entire thing, it is okay to put out addendums in your handbook, that you issue those addendums out, you get your employee or changes, right, modifications, you get those signatures from your employees. And I always, keep my own copy. When I was there, with you guys in the workplace, I kept my own copy. I kept all of my addendums so that when I updated my handbook on an end of year basis, I can put all of those things inside that handbook. In addition to that, as I saw the need for handbook policy changes, as things came up in the organization, we looked again at the handbook and any of our company policies and practices to ensure that they got updated, which was relevant to what was going on in the workplace, but was also needing to be changed. So definitely take advantage of our handbook updates, and definitely be looking at our updates in our newsletters. So in addition to that, like I said, we try hard, we work really hard to keep you informed of what labor laws are changing. But at the same time, each state requires both federal, state, and sometimes local posters to be up and accessible to your employees. Now, obviously, these days with the remote workforce that we have in this digital age, these posters can be made available in maybe your company intranet or extranet portal. If your payroll system or your human capital management system has somewhere where you can post these notices, these posters for your employees, the HR 360 portal also has a poster builder. So you can build out the posters, and that's going to be a feature that's coming in 2022. So look for lots and lots of new benefits to be offered in 2022 and some changes to your current memberships, all of which is better for the community. So definitely check with your payroll company, make sure, if they updated them throughout the year, then you should be in good shape. If you haven't received an updated poster from your payroll company in a while, then definitely give your contacts a call and say, hey, I need that. More often than not, your payroll companies are providing those kinds of services. So definitely make sure. And while there's nobody knocking on the doors right now to say, hey, let me see your federal, state, and local labor law posters, we may see a shift in that given the new administration. So you definitely do not want to be fined for not having a poster up in your organization. So remember, you need the federal postings, you need the state postings, and then sometimes you need local. So for example, I'm here in Broward County, neighbor to Miami-Dade County, and there are some postings required when it comes to domestic violence, abuse, and things of that nature. So you really have to know down to that local level what is required in your workplace. And again, your HR 360 portal can help you with that. That's what you have that benefit for. In addition to that, third is ensure that the notices that you have not only are needing to be posted in the workplace, but that the annual notices that you're supposed to be giving to your employees are also done as well. Some of these are if you have benefits and you are a large employer that requires employee benefits to be offered. There's the annual reportings for that they do have insurance, that they don't have insurance. Certain states require that employers provide notices, annual notices to their employees. Like for example, New Jersey requires that employers distribute Conscientious Employee Protection Act, CEPA. There's a plethora of them. And there's also many that include gender equality, gender equity, things of that nature. We're really starting to see a lot of these things sweep the nation. It's only a matter of time before, they catch up to Florida, where home base is. But again, HR 360 portal, that benefit can help you know what notices are required. And there are several when it comes to your benefits administration. If you have a 401k plan, if you have healthcare that's required by the Affordable Care Act. So be on top of those. And if you have any questions, that's what this is for, right? We deliver about 30 or 45 minutes worth of content on our Tuesday calls. The next 15 minutes is for you to Q&A. So whether it's about the content that we cover or something that came up to mind, that's what these calls are all about for you, our group members. So make sure that you are aware of what annual notices you are required to provide. In addition to that, finalize your benefit enrollment. A lot of times year end tends to be that time when we open enrollment to our benefit plans. It doesn't have to be, and there's no federal mandate that it has to be the year end, right? Typically we see that benefit plans run on a calendar year, but in fact, you can start and renew your benefit plan whenever you want. It really just is dictated in terms of when you've actually initiated your plan. So don't think, oh, I've got to wait until next year to start a benefit program. That is not the case. You can, in fact, start it at any time. People tend to use that end of year calendar from a calendar basis as their open enrollment period. So as required, there are things that you can change at the end of the year. Maybe when you started your benefit plan, you decided to take those deductions on a post-tax basis, right? The plan contribution is taken out of the employee's paycheck after their pay and their federal state deductions. So that has some things that can be improved upon. I'm looking for the word right now. That has some pre-tax benefits that you are not taking advantage of. So what does that mean? If you set up a Section 125 plan, and that's simply a code of the an IRS code that says, if you decide that you have enough offerings, maybe you're offering a medical, a dental, and a vision plan, maybe life insurance and health savings accounts and things of that nature. If you are providing various benefits, you can elect to take those deductions on a pre-tax basis. So what does that mean? I've got my top line income. I take out my premium for the cost of my benefits, and then I'm taxed on this amount, the lower amount. Well, what does that mean to you as an employer? When you have a Section 125 plan, not only is the employee paying less taxes on that income after that benefit premium is paid, but you as an employer also can stand to benefit because your taxes, your employment taxes, are taken out on that lower amount of paid salary, wages. So keep those things in mind. And if you want to ask, we've got some great benefit partners that help support us in what we do, making sure that if you have a qualified plan and you want to put in a Section 125 plan, it's going to save your employees money in terms of savings and taxes, and it will definitely impact your bottom line as well in terms of savings for you, in terms of how much you pay in taxes, because that wage, that payroll wage is reduced across the board. So keep those things in mind. In addition to that, if you do have retirement plans, you want to review those retirement plans. You want to make sure that if there's going to be a contribution or a matching, that those things are in there. Make sure that you're watching your administrators just as much. Don't always take for granted that what we pay the administrators to do are actually, being done. The contribution limits change all the time. So keep in mind, know what the going rate is for those contributions at the end of the year. Some individuals choose to kind of max out that contribution if you're in, that segment of the workforce. So definitely visit the IRS website. They have all of the information in terms of what the current maximum contributions are, those kinds of things, and make sure that your administrator, if you've got a qualified 401k plan, is doing the non-discrimination testing. That is part of that year end, is to perform that non-discrimination testing. And basically what that means is to ensure that the company, the amount of company contributions made for non-highly compensated employees are proportionate with those made for owners and managers and other highly compensated employees, right? It's all about equity. It's all about equity. So next is, some of you decide, I'm going to conduct performance reviews at the end of the year, right? Maybe you don't do it on that calendar year based on the anniversary date of the employee. You prefer to just kind of do them all at the same time, which helps utilize your staff to the fullest potential, being focused on that project. But remember, whenever you do the reviews, they should be done at least on an annual basis. Performance appraisals, they're important for making decisions regarding promotions, training needs, salary administration, disciplinary actions, terminations. Documentation is critically important. I remember, and still sometimes it happens even with some clients, oh, this person is terrible at their job, we want to terminate them. We open the employee file and there's nothing there. So we definitely want to make sure that we're documenting and conducting performance reviews at least at one time a year. And I would recommend, if you haven't done any throughout this year, consider November and December as instituting those. So the HR 360 portal has some sample employee performance review builders. This is a tool that you have so that you can figure out what is the criteria you want for your employee performance reviews, and you can build it out right on HR 360, what you have access to with your membership. So in addition to that, we want to make sure that we're auditing our own business practices. Failure to comply with employment laws can really result in some hefty fines, court fees, a bad reputation, and in some respects, if you're small business, it could really hurt you to the point that you might not even have continuity. Don't let this happen to you. Audit your business practices. Know what the federal, state, and local laws are for record keeping, for your employee files, for any of those things in the employee, what we call life cycle: recruitment, retention, performance management, paycheck administration, payroll administration, because any one of those things, if done incorrect, is a potential risk to your organization. Now, obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't share with you that HBL Resources, as your partner in your human resources support, provides human resources audits and surveys and things of that nature. So if you're interested in that service, by all means, let us know. We can do them for as little as $25 per employee to as much more than that, depending on how large your organization is and what components need to be audited within your organization. But definitely conduct an internal audit, and I'll put a link here shortly to where you can take a survey and receive a complimentary HR audit reference guide so that you can do a little bit of checking on your own. In addition to that, you want to consider what the new year holds and do some hiring strategies. What have you done in the past that has worked? Do you have analytics about where your best employees are coming from? Were they being sent through CareerSource Broward, or was it your local community school that you reached out to and made a connection with? I highly recommend that you ensure that we're not just using the online job boards anymore. It's getting much more difficult to get people back into the workforce. We've seen a massive shift. At the time of this recording, we're still in the times of COVID, and that employment workforce isn't 100% back. So we've got to get creative. And if you haven't seen or heard, the hiring podcast, then definitely check out our podcast and listen to that and do some creative approaches to your hiring strategies. Are you implementing or considering to implement maybe an employee referral program, reaching out to technical schools or colleges for the vocations in which you require in your organizations? Those are all ways that we can ensure that our hiring strategy is casting a larger net not a small net. And of course, before placing ads and interviewing candidates, you want to make sure that you know why you are looking for someone new. Is it to fill a void that was left? Is it for someone who's on leave? Are we going to be hiring someone temporary? Understanding what the future of your business will be will help you create that hiring strategy, so you're not scrambling at the last minute to find that individual. Are we networked within the associations and the organizations that we serve? Those are critical things. If you're not a member of your local chamber of commerce, definitely consider getting networked there. Many of them often have job boards that you can post jobs at as well, free of charge typically, if you're a member. You also want to ensure that am I hiring a W-2 employee, or can this be managed and handled? Does it require the expertise of an independent contractor? Those two things are distinctly different. And again, we do have I believe there's an ebook on our shop. There's so much up there I tend to forget regarding that difference between an employee and an independent contractor. We do treat them differently because of we don't pay payroll taxes on an independent contractor, whereas we do with an employee. We don't have to cover an independent contractor with workers' compensation, whereas we do for an employee. And those different classifications are vastly different. So you want to know that you're not tripping the wire and suddenly find yourself hiring for one classification when it should have been another. And then you find yourself in hot water because of a misclassification. There's a huge rise in litigation in that area. So definitely make sure what it is you're hiring, and then hire I like to say smile to suit the organization. You can always train the rest of it. So are you conducting background checks? When you look at your background check process, if you do have one, what's all included? Are you doing drug testing as well? Are you a drug-free workplace? And if you're a drug-free workplace for all intents and purposes, then you should be getting a discount on your workers' compensation insurance. So conduct business-related background checks. And again, HBL Resources does provide that service for our clients. Not only is a background check required for employers in certain industries or when hiring certain positions, and if you're in that industry, then if you do or don't qualify for that, they do need to, and they help ward against negligent hiring lawsuits, things of that nature. In addition to that, make sure that whoever is conducting your background checks has the infrastructure and the processes in place, so that should you decide not to hire someone as a result of what comes up on a background screen, whether it's the drug test or the background check or a credit check for some more financially driven positions, that the process follows the Fair Credit Reporting Act procedures. There are certain procedures that must be done. There are certain procedures that must be done to ensure that your organization is in compliance with FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So make sure that you've got the right processes in place. In addition to that, when was the last time you looked at your job descriptions, or are they even created? If you haven't done so already, now would be a good time of year to ensure that you have job descriptions for every position within the company, and that they include the physical requirements of the position. If your organization is over 15 employees, your job requirements, your job descriptions require you to outline the physical descriptions of those jobs in terms of the major life functions, right? Because this is an ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, triggering event to have more than 15 employees. Does your job description say how much seeing, hearing, talking, speaking, communicating, lifting, bending, stooping, ladder climbing, sitting, are they inside or outside? All of those are physical requirements of the position. But in addition to that, Your job descriptions also have to define the essential functions and the non-essential functions of a job. So the essential functions are the things that we cannot delegate to another individual, that the role and function of that job is in fact the essential elements of that job. And maybe, attending meeting isn't as essential, right? So it depends on what your organization is, what your positions are, but make sure that if you're over 15 employees, maybe you just passed that this year, now's the time to renew, review, or create those job descriptions, ensuring the essential and non-essential, and especially the physical requirements of those positions. It also helps when identifying training needs to determine what are some of the things that we would accommodate should we have someone with a disability approach us for that position. We want to be ready when and if that happens in our organization. So make sure that you are reviewing your job descriptions. In addition to that, like I mentioned before, check your job classifications. Not only do we have the classification of a 1099, an independent contractor versus a W-2 employee, an employee of your organization. These duties also include whether or not someone is exempt from overtime or non-exempt from overtime. Are they an hourly or are they a manager, right? And just because we slap the title manager on their name tag or on their job description or on their role doesn't make them a manager. Both the IRS and the Department of Labor have two separate distinctions and tests, if you will. They're starting to kind of come together now, but there's literally tests to say to show that your employee, your worker, is a salaried exempt employee and that there are certain criteria for that versus whether or not they are an employee for all intents and purposes. And the job description helps, but just because the job description says what they do they actually do those things? And you can go on the departmentoflabor.gov and you can search for exemption, and those will come up to say, okay, these are some of the things that I need to ensure. And the very first thing is that a salaried individual, in most classifications, the minimum you can pay someone on salary is $35,568. I think that's right. So if you take, so it equates to $17.10 an hour. So when you think about that, if you have a manager who is being paid less than that, you have just canceled out their eligibility to be in a managerial classification, in a salaried paid position. So if they're not over 35,568, you have not passed one of those critical tests, and you may want to look at the entire job and function to make sure everything else in that test is passing, because that has to be the case. So once you're sure and you have access to the accurate job description, and if they're exempt from overtime or not, and again, that's very, very narrowly defined under federal and state criteria, now you can proceed with going forward. Now, the great thing about doing all of these things year end is you are self-auditing your organization. You're going, oh my gosh, I found this error and I'm making efforts to correct the error. Much better to see that in your organization as a process. And then if next year the government comes knocking, then you can actually show, I did an internal audit. I did in fact see this. I made, corrected it in XYZ way. That's going to bode well for you if ever litigation would ensue. So nothing's foolproof, but definitely it helps to see you as an employer interested in complying with federal, state, and local law. In addition to that, keep in mind, very few employees are non-exempt. So really make sure that you look for that test on the Department of Labor's website. And again, it is available in your HR 360 portal as well. I am always here for you as well. So definitely reach out with the resources that you have. In addition to that, what else do we need to know during year end? So many of us have employee use it or lose it policies, but some have a rollover policy as well. You're permitting your employees to roll over paid time off, whether that's done on a calendar year or on a benefit plan year meaning that maybe it starts based on their hire date. Maybe it starts on their date after 90 days of employment, right? Whatever your benefit year is, maybe there's a rollover or carryover being done. Ensure that your payroll systems are set up properly, that you have implemented these processes to ensure that your payroll processor is taking into account your specific vacation policy. If it's not, then you want to audit that. And I know I'm doing some audits for a few of my clients right now, that you want to make sure that that's accurate going forward. No better time to clean up some things than year end going forward. And you should ensure that, anything that's accrued or unused, if it's supposed to be carried over, remember some state laws have jurisdiction here. There is no federal requirement to allow vacation or sick or holiday. None of that is required from a federal perspective for private employers. So definitely make sure that you know what your state requirements are. And again, we're here at home base in Florida. There are no state requirements here in Florida for either one. Whatever you decide to define your policy as is the agreement between you and your employees, and you've got to stick to that. In addition to that, this I always get some questions on, comply with the sheet laws. The sheet laws means that your company is holding on to money that belongs to an employee or former employee. Well, what is that in the form of? It could be in the form of uncashed paychecks. Maybe that drawer, full of paychecks that you have that were never picked up. You haven't returned them, to the payroll company. There are specific sheet laws that require you to alert that individual and or send the money to the appropriate state agencies. So make sure that if you're hanging on to old paychecks, a live paycheck, a direct deposit one that maybe got kicked back and now you can't find the employee, those are definitely wages that need to be deposited into the right state agency accounts, and at least show what you did do in terms of trying to get a hold of the employee. Keep a record. I used to keep a record right on the paycheck itself. After we, canceled the paycheck or stopped the payment, if you will. Returned it to unclaimed wages, line item, in the P&L, that kind of thing. But I would keep a record of when did I send an email? Where was the email sent to? Did I send a registered mail, to the employee's last known address, things of that nature, so that you do show you've made an attempt to comply with getting this employee their paycheck. We don't have too much issue with that these days. At least I don't think so, but definitely want to do your due diligence. Consider taking a few extra steps as I outlined, because that'll help improve employee commitment, efficiency, and reduce and avoid some potential legal claims there for your organization. So I hope that has provided you with some insights, maybe one or two new nuggets that said, oh, maybe this is a good time of year to take a look at some of these internal processes. Definitely, it's a demanding time of year for most employers, HR especially, because there's lots of balls usually in the air at the year-end period of time. But these are some of the things that we want you to definitely focus on and consider taking some time as we go into a new year here, as we approach and get right in the middle of Q4. So I hope that's been of service. I am going to stop the recording, and I'm happy to take any questions. I hope that has been of value.